Big kid energy, guys. This is what it is. This is what it is, baby. We here. We out here, B. Welcome to another episode of FredTalk. Welcome, Fred heads and or Freddy Knights. What is a Freddy Knight? What is a Freddy? It's a play on word on Jedi Knights, baby. Because there's dark forces out here trying to fuck our shit up, all right? But at the end of the day, if we stay positive and we do right by each other, we're going to get through this, people. That's it. We're going to get through this. So just like the Jedi Knights, baby, we use the good, all right? We get strong so that we can help others that aren't as strong as us, whether emotionally, physically, mentally. You know what I'm saying, people? Where my Freddy Knights at? Where my Fred heads at? Whichever one you're comfortable, you're cool with. If you're like, what the fuck is all this? To be considered any of these things, you just got to subscribe to the channel, all right? And you just got to just do your best. That's all it is, all right? Here at Fred Talk, we have conversations with real world people in the midst of the come up, all right? Having real life conversations with people divulging real shit, man. And then we'll get motivation, inspiration, some laughs, you know? Maybe we got a little sad. You feel me? You feel me, guys? You see where I'm coming from here? This is just real shit, all right? Laughs, inspiration, guys. This conversation, man, it has all of it, man. This conversation is with Davis Alford, and I know Davis. I've known him for a few weeks now, and one thing that draws me to him is the dichotomy between us. Because one thing I love in life is because, you know, things in life, when things are and aren't at the same time, that is life in itself, baby. That is life. So me and Davis technically come from, I mean, we're both Americans, right? Both Americans, but we come from completely different backgrounds. You know me, I'm a kid from Yonkers, New York, you know, first generation born Dominican. Oh yeah, ¿qué pasa, mi gente? You know what I'm saying? You know, we grew up poor. My dad was a drug dealer. He went to prison. Mom was on welfare for a little bit. She got her GED. You know, I remember going to night school with her and shit. You know, grew up with love in the house, especially after my abusive biological father left the crib, you know, when he went to prison, when he went to his extended stay spot, you know. I ended up going to college, and I've been in the South now for 15 years, man. And the South has a bad rap, as it should, because there's a lot of fucked up shit that happened here. But there are people out there doing what they got to do to make it better. And Davis is one of those people. Davis is a good old boy. If you looked at him, you'd be like, look at this motherfucking frat boy. Look at this motherfucking frat boy. But, dude, this motherfucker is such a kind heart and a kind soul, man. It just, him and I have been hanging out. And luckily, we're just into the same shit. We skateboard together. He plays guitar, so he's got that creative side to him. He's a funny dude that just wants to do right by the people next to him, near him. And he wants to connect with people, man. So with Davis, Davis has been sober now for 33 months. So we talk a bit about his sobriety, why he got to that point, how he got to that point, and how it's been since then. And then we pivot into his Southern culture, his subculture, coming from old money, coming from Southern heritage, Southern aristocracy, baby. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is, I would say quite literally, we come from the complete opposite sides of the spectrum on this American thing, man. But it's just two dudes coming together with the same shit in common, man. We talk about that. So he gives us a little bit on his family background, Southern culture, Southern history, and what he's looking forward to and what he looks forward to for, he calls it Dixie 2.0, which is essentially the Dixie without the racism is really what it is. And it's beautiful, man. This guy, and I love how openly he talks about how he grew up with shit. Because I hate when people grew up with money and they act like they don't. They try to act like they're poor. They had it hard. This motherfucker's like, nah, we went skiing. We had a fucking mansion on a mountain. And we were balling, and he understands where he is in life. And that's fucking okay. That's the best thing. Because you don't control where you were born. You know what I'm saying? And he's doing the best with what he has. Uncle Ben from Spider-Man would be proud of him, because with great power comes great responsibility, you know? He had a tough time with the booze and all that, but his family came together and they helped him out. And now he's looking forward, man. The shit looks bright. This is such a great conversation, very intimate. He's sitting outside for a lot of it. We're doing it over Zoom because we're in this self-isolation type shit because of the coronavirus. And this is just a great conversation, man. This is the shit that Fred talks about. Guys, subscribe to Fred Talk, please. I want to stay in Raleigh. I want to stay here. You know, and the only way for me to do that is to build an audience. So please do that and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't. It's self-titled Freddy Valoy. I'm putting up the FredTalk episodes whenever I can. Some people don't want to be videoed. That's cool. I'm putting up my vlogs, which I release. You know, I would say quite frequently now. You know, once a month, or not once a month. Excuse me, once a week ish. You know, 3 a month. And they're funny, man. You know, just trying to put that positive light onto the universe. Share these episodes with a friend. Subscribe to my shit, please. Please, I'm going hard here. I'm putting my foot on the gas here. My stand-up routine is on fucking fire right now, B. It's on fire, and I'm loving it, baby. I've hit a point where I'm like, this is the shit I need to be doing. I need to be doing these podcasts. I need to be doing the shit on the YouTube channel, and I need to be going on this fucking stage and lighting it to fucking flames like I've been doing, all right? And I'm only gonna get better. I'm only 3 years in. I'm a little fucking comedy baby, but I'm not saying I'm the baby of comedy, but maybe, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? His music's all about bodying a nigga. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know, guys. Subscribe to my shit, please. I love you guys, man. Without any further ado, man, I'm gonna take it right to my man Davis. Davis Alford, guys. This is such a good conversation. So excited, guys. I wish you guys the best, and please go do that thing you've been meaning to go do. Here it goes, people. Ra-ta-ta-ta.
Welcome to FredTalk, where if you're not learning, hopefully you're laughing.
So, Davis, why did you choose a life of sobriety?
Thank you for asking that, Freddy, and thank you for having me on here, of course. It's an honor to be speaking with you as a friend and telling my story and my background to all of your fans and the people out there. But to answer your question, my family intervened with me initially because I was being such a, for lack of a better term, dick.
What do you mean by dick? What were some of the situations that caused the dickisms?
Multiple and many, you know, and the sad part is that in my drunken stupor, which was often, I didn't realize that I was being that way. To me, everything was just fun and games without any consequences. But, you know, just running my mouth, taking things too far, taking advantage of situations and people on a regular basis, and clouding my outlook on life and what everyone knew me to be, which was a good person, is a good person, with too much consumption of substances, alcohol. I did my fair share of cocaine, but you know, when my family came to me and said something needs to change, or it's not going to be good, it was about alcohol. And luckily, I completely agreed with them. You know, I was just I started at a young age. My first drunk was 10 at a family church Christmas party. My brother was, shit you not, feeding me eggnog, and I didn't know it was alcoholic. And then I had to go into the into the living room, and everybody gathered around the grand piano. It's like something out of a damn Dickens novel, but with a twist. And that was not a pun. Oliver Twist.
I heard that. I heard that.
And wanted to hear me recite my solo from "Still, Still, Still" from the Advent service the week before, and I got through like a couple verses and then puked all over the hardwoods.
Oh damn, puking at 10.
Yeah. But I didn't know what was going on. And a mix of egg whites and whiskey in the old fashioned eggnog did not sit well on a 10-year-old's belly. And then knowingly, my first time imbibing was 12 on a sailing trip with my father, kind of a coming of age situation. Here, son, have a beer. Well done today. That kind of thing. Which it's a very fond memory. I love that memory. And then I didn't really start drinking on my own with the attempt of getting a buzz until 14. But after that, it was pretty much off to the races. It escalated from just Friday, Saturday to Thursday's a new Friday to let's start the weekend early on Wednesday to drinking before soccer practice senior year of high school. And that was all in high school. Then I got to college and, I had a chip on my shoulder because I went to my safety school, which is Appalachian State. I'm happy I went there, but I went up there thinking I was intellectually superior to everyone, being a little dick,
What was your first choice of school?
Was bored and just drinking and was put on school by fraternity. My first choice was Sewanee, University of the South. And I got deferred, which is odd because I have a lot of family connections there, but I didn't do dick in high school. I got by. And if I had tried, 10% of the amount that I tried in college, in high school, I would have had academic scholarships everywhere because all you got to do in high school is try. It's not hard subject matter, And,
yeah. Just try a little bit and be a little bit likable to the teachers. Like
exactly.
So you felt like you were intellectually superior to the people at App State, and how did that play out, like in your social situations and all that?
Well, it's a good question. From what I recall, and from my point of view, it played out just fine. I was different. I hung out with a lot of good old boys. I hung out with a lot of well-to-do guys. I hung out with some rednecks. That was the first 3 years of my collegiate experience. And, I was able to be what I thought was myself, which was outspoken and boisterous and fun, wild. And I'm a big guy, 6'4". I'm sure at that point I was like 180, 190. So I can get away with saying a lot. It doesn't mean I didn't get punched in the face every once in a while, but, little things like that would happen and I'd slow my roll, which is why I never ended up in jail or anything or beaten to a pulp on the side of the road, I think, which I'm thankful for.
Listen, there's something to being punched for a man. There's something to being punched in the face at some point in like, the young adult life or teenage years. It's kind of like a check from the universe. Like you just said, like I have this joke where I say, I don't really trust the guy that hasn't been punched in the face. Like, and I can tell a lot. And I met a lot of guys like this in college where the way they're acting, I'm like, wow, that guy has never been fucked up ever in his life. I can tell. He's just running his mouth. I'm like, man, that guy, the universe has not checked him. I completely agree
with you. Yeah, you can look at him and you say, that guy's never been punched in the face.
Yeah, because that's the thing that men have that women don't really, for the most part, encounter. It's like we always have that thing where we don't really talk shit because that's a possibility for us, is to get into those physical altercations, and most of the times we don't want those, so that's interesting. Yeah,
very true. And
you got more points in my book, bro. Like
well, you've seen the scars above my brows. They've been split multiple times. Everybody's right-handed too, and they're always punching up, so I'd always just catch a black eye and have my brow split, the exact same spot, and I never got stitches, because I'm hard as fuck. Because I'd wake up, I'd sober up a day and a half later, and it'd be, a little too late to go get stitches now. I'd send a photo text to my pops, and he'd be like, "What happened this time?"
Yeah.
yeah, you should have gotten stitches. But yeah, you could definitely pick them out of the crowd. The way somebody's acting in a bar or in public, you're just like, that guy could really benefit from a punch to the face.
Yep.
Yeah. Poor guy. Poor guy ain't ever been punched in the face, man.
So those physical lessons kind of slightly shifted your outlook on things, and how'd that go?
Yeah, it provided for me an outlet to, at that point, what I thought was growing up. I spent 6 years up in Boone for the most part, and did some grad work up there. Glorified undergrad, really. I wasn't in grad school, but I was doing grad work, and they gave me a few degrees. And then I was working in a fine dining restaurant up there, which I loved. And they then became my Watauga County, where App State is in Boone, my Watauga County family. I thought I had grown up at that point. I was above the college kid scene. I was going to the bars where the professors were hanging out. And the time came time to graduate and become part of the real world. Hey, Miss Jean, how are you? Good. I didn't really leave those partying ways behind me. I got a job in medical sales, as we've connected on before. Did medical device consulting, and was doing orthopedic and trauma, so I was on call all the time, and was having to make big boy moves, but I had a big boy salary and big boy commissions, and I was essentially just went from drinking Dewar's neat to drinking Macallan neat,
Yeah.
and not changing any of my habits, but knowing better. Luckily, I was gifted, granted, blessed with a true moral compass. So my intuitions of right or wrong are correct. And I'm fucking off all my, teenage years and mid 20s. I always knew that wasn't the thing to be doing. But I always had a catalyst that, and my brother kind of paved the road for me with this. Once I graduate college, I'll settle down. Well, once I get a good job, I'll settle down. Once I have a committed relationship, I'll change my ways. Once I'm engaged, once I'm married, once I have kids, following my brother's footsteps, because he did all that shit and settled down a long time ago, right? But I never did until I had to be slapped in the face by my loved ones, thankfully.
Did you have like a distinctive like rock bottom story, or pretty much like your moral compass coupled with your family talking to you, that's what kind of did it?
Yeah. So it's funny, I'm very involved in AA, or as much as I can be. Great fellowship. Everybody that's in the program has a different way of working the program. My program is it relies heavily on the fellowship of it, and then the moral principles of how to live that are set, in stone. That program in writing, or 12 steps, the 12 traditions, the 12 principles. So there's people that memorize all that shit, and it's not shit, but they memorize all that. I don't have that memorized, but I practice it, right?
Yeah.
So we say in the program, it's I'm a high bottom drunk.
What is
where
that?
It's where, so think of the elevator going down. Your life's going down like an elevator shaft.
Yeah.
And I get off at the ground level, or I get off on the first level. I don't go all the way to the basement or the subfloor, rock bottom, right? So I'm a high bottom drunk because I didn't lose my family. I didn't lose my job. I didn't go to jail. I didn't kill anyone. I didn't, almost kill myself. There's times where I hurt myself, not like suicidal ideations or anything, but like falling down drunk, splitting my head open, shit like that. So there should have been wake up calls, but the heavy drinker and the abuser of alcohol doesn't take them as such and continues to do that. So I'm a high bottom drunk, and that none of that happened to me. But what did happen was the intervention with my family. My father, it was interesting. So my parents divorced when I was 12, and that pulled separated when I was 12. The divorce was finalized when I was like 20. There were like 8 years in court, and I think, from what I remember, I don't know if this still holds, but it was the longest divorce in North Carolina state history. And all my buddies that were in law school at Wake while I was starting medical schools were like studying Alford v. Bradford.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's interesting as shit.
Right. That being said, after that happened, I've seen my mother and my father in the same room other than a courtroom 3 times: my graduations, my brother's wedding, and my intervention. So clearly,
Wow.
when
I
that
just
day
got chills
came,
there, man.
right? Yeah, I get chills every time I think about it. When that day came, I see all of my brother, my mother, and my father sitting there before me, and I immediately recognized the love in that room and in that situation for me, and the dire circumstances that they felt they were in order for me to make a change so that they could still have their son or their brother or their friend or their loved one, right? Um, and it started with my father being a medical doctor, taking the medical approach, keep it this way, this is what's going to happen. Um, and then my mother taking the approach of uh, her, I've lost my son, I want my son back. And then my brother, who had a 2-year-old at the time, Foxen, who's now 5, and the joy of my world as well as my brother and his wives. Him saying, if you continue on this path, you will not see your nephew anymore. And that's all I needed. I was already on board, thankfully. A lot of people have to get slapped around a little bit more than I did. I'm one of the fortunate few that, when my time was up, as other people saw it, it truly was up, as it seems for now.
Yeah. Before then, were you having like moments of like guilt or shame, or you kind of knew like this shit, like, yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. What was it? What was
And
that like for you?
and that's what I knew. So I essentially, and I've only recently started saying this, Freddy, but it's the truth. I drank myself out of the medical device world. Being a medical sales rep, being a medical device consultant. I was just, and I wasn't drinking around the clock or anything. I was showing up still drunk from the night before, and if that wasn't the case, then I was hungover, and it wasn't good. Obviously, I had a lot of opportunities to think that I was like able to hide that, wearing surgical masks in the cases and everything like that, but
Yeah.
um, that wasn't the case. So that was a consequence. Um, I didn't necessarily lose my job per se. My boss and I's relationship had become extremely toxic. I was an asset to him for sure, and he didn't want to have to replace me or train anybody else. So, anyways, we parted ways. I freelanced for a little bit, and I had a good amount of money saved up. I was still making pretty good money, but I had increased time because I wasn't on call anymore. I wasn't my errand boy for my boss. I wasn't his right hand man. So with that time and money came more drink, and 3 heavy nights a week turned to 5 heavy nights a week. I was going out more. I was pissing off buddies, wives, and girlfriends, and waking up to my roommate and saying, hey, do I need to apologize to anyone from last night? Instead of saying that, I'd say, hey, who do I need to apologize to for last
Oh
night?
shit.
Knowing,
Yeah.
that I did something dumb. And it wasn't good. And I was the hardest drinking guy out of my group. And these guys are mostly attorneys and physicians and, well-to-do folk that know how to fucking party. But
Yeah.
when I told them I was going to stop drinking, they're like, "Oh, thank God, I'm going to save like $500 this month," because like, I'm not the enabler saying, "Yo, we're going to go and take shots, man. It's Brooke Shields' birthday,"
Yeah.
whatever reason I have to party, um, but then where I knew, if a moment sticks out in my mind that I know that it had come to a stop or needed to come to a stop. Family beach trip. My dad and his wife and their daughter Olivia, who's my half sister. They adopted her at birth. She's 7 now. And Tyler and Sarah and Foxen down at the beach, and my girlfriend at the time, and we were hard drinking all day, all of us, right? And Tyler gets after it, my brother, but responsibly so. And it's like close to the end of the trip, and Tyler and I are cooking dinner for everybody, and there's 6 adults, right? And long story short, we have an argument over how many fish should be spicy. And this is what restless, irritable, and discontent are, the three determining factors that you are powerless over alcohol, right? And I was verbally combative on a regular basis at this point, and so Tyler gets in my face and says, "Well, I said something about the fish being spicy, and well, if you want to be an asshole, man, you need to take it somewhere else." And so it essentially comes to the point where we're about to slug each other. Normally, viewed as like a little brotherly altercation. My dad steps in the middle of it and separates us. And it's then that I realized that Tyler's holding Foxen in his arms. And he's a 2-year-old. That's when their minds are like sponges. Not to mention, my drunken fists could have not landed on Tyler and popped the baby in there.
Yeah,
right?
man. Yeah.
Now, whose fault is that? Tyler was drunk too. He's holding his son. Should he get in my face when he's holding his kid? No. But the ultimate part of it is, had I not had a problem consuming, then none of that would have happened ever, and we would have all been sitting down to a nice family meal, and Tyler wouldn't have left the next morning without saying bye, and then the next time I see him is 2 weeks later at my intervention.
Ooh, okay. Damn,
So,
dude.
That's
well, good thing it didn't come to the rock bottom where it could have been you accidentally hitting your nephew in the face or anything like that, man. And I appreciate you sharing this, Davis, man. This is some real shit, man. And congrats to you for having that self-awareness, man. And when they had that intervention, you coming to and being like, fuck it, man. That's it. So how long have you been sober now?
I think in a couple days it'll be 33 months. And the only reason I know is because 33 is my lucky number. Scottie Pippen, what?
What? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Why do you like Scottie Pippen?
Man, he was every king needs his right hand man, right? Jordan wouldn't have been who he was if Scottie Pippen wasn't around, and he was
very
loyal.
True.
He was with the Bulls through and through. Even when Jordan took those breaks off, I think he got a ring without Jordan, didn't he? There at the end, I think he went to the Trailblazers and shit. But I liked his loyalty, and I liked the fact that he built other people up.
Nice, man. Hell yeah! So 33 months. So how's this 33 months of sobriety looking for you? What was it like at the beginning, just starting out?
Yeah, it was. It was, for me, Freddy, it was in the grand scheme of things relatively easy, and I don't tell many people this, especially that are in the rooms of the program, but I have a hard time believing that I'm actually an addict. This is the first time that I've tried to quit, and it's taken, which in the program is called a one-chip wonder. We pick up chips, or the first chip is your white chip, the chip of surrender. And I only had to pick that up once so far. And unfortunately, the only way to find out if I am an addict is to go back out there and drink. And see if I can control it or not, and fall into the 87% of the population that is not an addict. Statistics and science says that 13% of people fall underneath the addict category. They have
really? That seems like a low number to me.
You think it's low?
Yeah. To be addict, I mean, yeah. It seems like we're all addicted to something, whether it's drama or it may not be substance related, but that's a promising number, I should say. That makes me feel I don't know, it's a promising number. It's a positive thing, but I would have assumed it was a higher number, but that's cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
and you go out and you go out to bars with friends and stuff like that, and you still haven't gone back to that, or relapse, I should say, or whatever.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat that?
Yeah. So, in these 33 months, you've been out. You go out to bars and stuff like that with friends, or do you typically stay out of those situations?
I do. Which brings me to the next point, in the fact that I'm different. Everybody thinks they're different in the program. Everybody thinks they can work it a different way. Everybody has their own ways of working it, right? I've always associated as an outlier. I'm not saying my way is right, and I'm not saying that I'm not willing to admit that I am an addict, but I, devoted to myself that the only thing that was going to change in my life when I became sober was the fact that I was consuming alcohol, and that was going to cease. Socially, I didn't really back off. I took my foot off the gas pedal a little bit there for a while, but at the time I was starting a small batch hot sauce company and was working with breweries because they were part of my ingredients. So I was around that a lot. I didn't, stop going to trivia on Thursday nights at the local brewery. Stop going to kickball games where it's beer in hand. Um, you know, and it's very. I've gone on bachelor parties. I've gone to weddings. I've toured whiskey distilleries. Traveled, and people bash willpower. They say that quote us addicts have the greatest amount of willpower because we wouldn't have stayed out there doing all the dumb shit we did if we didn't. It took will to do that. And so you can't rely on your sobriety solely on willpower. But that has a lot to do with it for me. Once I set my mind to something, it was going to be the case. And, it took my father, my mother, and my brother saying the things they did and bringing to my really commercial answer, I don't think, but as I used to be. But luckily my social life hasn't necessarily suffered. I have a lot of me time too, though. I really have learned to appreciate quiet moments and not being around people and time for reflection and time to just slow down and think about it all.
Nice, man. What was the...
You still there?
Hello.
Yeah.
Lost you there for a second, but we're back. What was that quiet time and during that quiet time and reflection time? What was the prominent thought that you, or the prominent takeaway you get during that time?
It was really, that things truly did need to change, and it wasn't just the fact that I was drinking too much. It was the fact that I was not the person that I knew myself and that other people that really knew me and loved me knew me to be. Just caring and compassionate and understanding and patient and open and welcoming. I had become cold and negative and standoffish and just all around difficult person to be around. Very combative and combustible. And the more I think about that, the more to take inventory of how I used to be, the more I want to change things going forward. And I take steps to change things. Surrounding myself with a good tribe definitely helps that. It's nice being completely clear-headed and knowing that you want to spend time with people because you know that they're good people and they actually enjoy being around you too.
Yeah. You don't have that filter of substance to, I've been through that during my heavy drug use days to, then you stop doing the thing and then all of a sudden you realize those people don't call you anymore. And I'm like, man, I thought those people were down for me. It's just like, no, they were just wanted somebody to get fucked up with. And then all of a sudden you stop and then they don't call you anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, good job on crawling out of that hole, man. Because I've been there myself. I wasn't outwardly combustible to others, but I was inwardly to myself, man. I had, hit suicidal moments, heavy substance abuse with, boozing and shit like that, and just the negative thoughts that those amplify and shit like that, and being able to, minimize, I guess, the drinking or whatever. It's just it was like when I was going through that depressed moment a few years ago, I realized that I had to take a break from all that shit. So good for you, brother.
Yeah. And a lot of recognize that on their own. And they're the fortunate ones like yourself, and they take a step back from it and don't need others to point out to them their faults. They're my family, my friends were telling me out loud what I was afraid to say, and I didn't want to swallow my pride and say, I need help, but I did. Uh, you know,
That's big, man. That's a huge step right there.
Right. Yeah. Nobody wants to admit that they're vulnerable like that, and or that they're powerless, or that they're the first step of Alcoholics Anonymous is admitting that you are powerless over alcohol and your life has become unmanageable. And Elton John said it best in an Instagram post a few months ago when he picked up a 29-year chip. And he said 29 years ago today, um, I did the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. And that was saying 3 words, I need help. And I haven't regretted it since.
Wow. Good. Damn. That's powerful, man. I need help, man.
Yeah.
I bet at some level, everybody could say that at some level of their life. It may not be abusing substances, but even if it's just like, I don't know, man, managing a day, helping, needing help with a child or something, man. So that is something very difficult to do. And I think we could all empathize with that, man. So you've been in Raleigh for about 10 months now, man. Why did you move out here?
Yeah. So, I wasn't thinking about it. I was living in Winston-Salem where I grew up. And that's where I had my reputation of being a wild man and hail fellow well met, and hometown hero kind of sorts. So I was the party Johnny Good Time in high school, and then showed everybody a good time when I came back from college, and then in my pro years as a young professional there. But I got sober there too, and I moved in with my girlfriend who was with me when I was drinking, and then when I got sober, and then afterwards. Very, very sweet woman, and lived with her and her kids. And I bear with me. I'll get to the point of how I ended up in Raleigh.
No, you're doing great.
Yeah. And after moving in, I realized that I wasn't in love with her, which was tough because the next step was obviously committing our lives for the rest of our lives together. Especially, there's kids involved. We're living together. I'm contributing on the mortgage, stuff like that.
Was there something or a confluence of things that made you feel like that, or was it just the feeling wasn't there?
Well, I think sobriety helped with that. I think I was just being more honest with myself, whereas previously, when I was in relationships, I'd just drink and be like, this will pass, and then it comes to it's a powder keg, inevitable to explode.
Yeah.
And I was honest with myself, and but subconsciously, I was pulling away and distancing myself, and then outwardly I was doing things that I shouldn't do as a boyfriend. I was also the most depressed I'd ever been in my life. That summer that we split up, I was a year into sobriety, and I didn't have my armor anymore to manage my depression. I didn't have my ammunition. I was addressing it head on. It is the most intense time of my life where I had suicidal ideations. Luckily, I'd never acted upon any of them, and they were all fleeting thoughts. But I knew, I was like, shit, man, something's got to change. So what can I control here? And when I say I was doing things a boyfriend shouldn't do, I was like desperate for something to make me feel good. So I started, communicating with a girl that I shouldn't have, and not nothing more than text, but I
Yeah,
was just
no,
throwing a lifeline.
it was like kind of like the emotional cheating or whatever. It's like, yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. I wouldn't go as far as saying that because it was literally like a 24-hour period, and the girl said, "I'm with somebody right now. Nice to talk to you. I suggest if you're unhappy in a relationship, you should get out of it." And I said, "Yeah, you're probably right." And nothing more than that. And a week later, the old girl found that conversation. Somehow stumbled across it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
the deed was done. He had to go pretty deep into my iPad to find that other thing. But the deed was done at that point, and she said, "I think you should move out," and I said, "I agree." And it was an amicable separation for the most part. We still communicate some, and my mother actually tutors her kids in Spanish, and I still talk to the kids and let them know that I love them and everything like that. But that being said, I didn't have anything holding me down to Winston-Salem at that point. And when I was 21, so like 10, 12 years ago, I lived in Jackson, Wyoming with my brother. He was out there for 4 years, met his wife out there, who was there for 12 years. And it was the best time of my life. We grew up skiing. We were very fortunate to go out west a lot and ski. I went to snowshoe up in West Virginia a lot. I skied while I was at App. And I was like, I got to get back out there. My time out west and done. So
Yeah.
we recently became involved in a family home in Colorado in Summit County at Copper Mountain, and asked my uncle, who's the proprietor of it, can I move out there and live there for the season? He's like, yeah, we can work that out. Planning on living rent free at this slopeslide mansion all season, if not longer. And I did for about a month, and then him and his wife came out and said, "We're going to be here for the rest of the season. Also, can you live somewhere else?" And I said, "Yeah, it's probably best." Even though this place was so big that they wouldn't even know that I was there.
Yeah.
It was nice to have them, and luckily, I was able to find somebody from North Carolina. From here, grew up here in Raleigh. Great guy, Philip Mancuso. And he was living there in Silverthorne, Colorado, and he was a ski patrol, and I was a ski instructor. And went through all those testing processes and everything. And he'd been there for a while, living with other ski patrollers, and they were assimilated into the community. And really, I moved in with them, and they just got me involved in the community there real quick. And it was a great fit, and it was phenomenal. Then the season comes to an end, and I'd been making ski instructor salary, getting paid peanuts, but
what is that, like a ski instructor salary minimal? Like
yeah, $13 an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was working 6 days a week. But that wouldn't work, man. I was fucking skiing,
Yeah.
I think I skied 32 straight days in a row, and I skied 130 days, last season.
Damn.
And yeah, it was amazing. And last year, that was only doable also because we had a phenomenal year as far as snow is concerned. But so then the season ended, and I didn't have a job anymore. And I started looking for medical positions. I started looking for any sales positions. I almost got a job as the Rocky Mountain territory manager for Yeti coolers. And turns out, I think that
that's so fitting, dude.
Right?
Frat bro selling Yeti coolers, Southern, good old boy. That's great.
I can see my picture and be like, "Yo, man, you can fit 60 LaCroix in this one, man." Figure out some, linking with AA somehow. But yeah, if you're in AA, you get a discount. But I found out that it was like between me and one other person, and small world. I looked, and the HR manager for Yeti as a whole was she was down there in Texas, and she was a girl that like I just never really invited to my parties in high school. And I found out the other guy, and I looked a hell of a lot better on paper than he did, and so I was like, why the hell did I get passed over this? And I was like, should have asked her over for a beer,
Yeah.
like, guys, if that had happened, I would have been out there killing it and living in Silverthorne and skiing 6 months a year still. But that being said, Freddie, everything happens for a reason. And I believe that more and more every day as I walk this journey of a cleaner and better life. Prior to moving out there, my cousin down in Florida bought into this big fencing company in the Southeast. He's a majority partner now. He said, we're opening a shop up in Raleigh. I need a good sales guy. Will you be the sales lead? And I said, nope, I'm going skiing. And the lateral move from medical sales to construction sales is not a lateral move at all. So I'm not interested. Thank you, though. And then in May, June of last year, I called him up with my tail between my legs and said, is that job still available? Because it is $3,000 for a 1-bedroom half bath in Denver for a month. I can't afford that. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but it's ridiculous. And he said, get your ass over here. We're getting things started. And it was nice. When I was driving out there, I had North Carolina in my rearview mirror. I didn't think I was coming back. I was extremely nostalgic, reached out to some people that I loved and tried to make amends. That didn't happen. That was another lesson I learned. And then coming back, it felt right. And Raleigh, 10 months in Raleigh has been great. Got a great spot. You've been over here. I love it here in Boiling Heights. Boiling boys.
Boiling.
And yeah. Whoop. But it's 90 miles away from where I grew up, but I'm trying to treat it like 900 miles. I'm friends back in Winston still that I try to see. And I've got good college buddies around here. They're either married with kids or still partying their asses off. So clearly I fall in between somewhere. So I don't see them that often, but it's nice to have that to fall back on. And honestly, I was thinking the other day, I was like, I don't have many people that I spend time with after 5 p.m. other than degenerates. Because I go and hang out at the Healing Transitions a lot and volunteer over there, which is, homeless shelter and rehabilitation center. And there's some great guys over there that are that I'm kind of mentoring and, just helping out there.
Nice, man. How often do you do that?
Well, I go to an AA meeting there once or twice a week, and then I go and hang out and, just interact. And some of them, once I, gain their trust and they gain my trust, more importantly, I invite them, cook them dinner here at my place and get them out. I had a couple guys come over here and help me decorate my tree during Christmas time. And, just really, really nice stuff. A lot of these guys, like, for 20 years or more have not been viewed as a human because their addictions have gotten the best of them or the worst of them, or they've been on the streets, And, it's funny, I remember growing up how like petrified I was of a bum, and now like some of the people that I consider dear friends and sages that I heed sage advice from are considered that, and I'm extremely comfortable around them, and hugging them and emotions.
That's what I appreciate about you, man. You make a valiant effort to connect with people, man. Just from the simple thing of like, you'll text me every now and then, but for the most part, you call me first. You value. It seems like you value the phone call. You want to hear a voice. We've met and you reached out a bunch of times, like, and I can be hard to commit to something with all the shit I got going on, but luckily we live 2 blocks away. We have a lot of the same interest, and it's great too, because I don't know, man, we've been friends now. I would say we're hanging out for a few weeks now, and I'm liking what's blossoming so far, bro. You're a dude that's just trying to do good by everybody around him. Like you said, you're surrounding yourself around good people. So it's been great, bro. And what I appreciated about the most is that you and I are from completely different backgrounds. We're 2 Americans, but 2 very different type of Americans. And I would argue on the opposite side of the spectrum. I'm from, I'm first generation born Dominican from New York City, grew up poor family, whatever, blah, welfare at one point. You are Southern good old boy. Family's been here for generations, old money type, man. But you and I, we fucking click, bro. And I love that shit, man. So I find that very interesting. What was it like growing up? Like, because you're what your archetype-ish would be like, or the stereotype would be like, Southern frat boy type, whatever. But like, what was that like growing up for you? Like,
Yeah. Well, first of all, I appreciate you recognizing the dichotomy associated with us, but the connection I have, it's inexplicable, and I love it when I have connections with people like that. It clearly comes from the best place, and you just
Absolutely, yeah.
you, it's real, and somebody's intentions are true. Um, it's a sixth sense, and I recognize that you have it also, and
Yeah, like imagine if we both let
friendship
the
and love
outside
have
shit
no
distract us
boundaries.
from who
And
we
I'm really
are
happy to have
as
met you,
people.
as well as the other people that you're introducing me to.
Oh wait, we lost the connection there a little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah, like
yeah.
imagine if we let like the outside shit distract us. Like I could have looked at you and been like, "Oh, look at this fucking frat boy," blah blah blah. You could have been like, "Look at this black dude." Like, don't you know what I'm saying? Oh, shit like that. But we didn't. Like, I
Well,
always go back to when that the Dark Knight Rises. That line that
yeah.
Bane says when he's beating the shit out of Batman, and Batman tries to throw the explosives to distract him, and he's like, "Oh,
Mhm.
theatricality and deception, powerful agents to the uninitiated, but we are initiated, aren't we, Bruce? Members of the League of Shadows." And like, I take that as like, I don't let outside shit distract me from what's inside, bro. Like, I don't do it because then you miss
Definitely.
out on what we have here, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, sorry. Go back to answer
Right.
the
Right.
question. What was that like?
Well,
What was growing up for you like?
uh,
Like, what's the? I want to know about your
well,
subculture.
to piggyback on what you just said, and it'll then transition into answering your question. You know, I don't like the people that are like, I don't see color, man. Don't be a fucking ignorant punk.
Thank
Like,
you. Yeah.
you know, I see color. Like, you're black, but it doesn't matter, man. It's what's inside. You got to be open to that. And it doesn't matter what you're wearing. And I growing up, I remember like my dad wore the goofiest shit. I was like, what a loser. And now I'm like wearing the shit that he's wearing. I don't give a shit. I can still get dates. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, dude.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm like, why do people like my dad? Like, he's a fucking dweeb. Um, but yeah, it's like you can't. Race is only skin deep, right? Um,
Literally,
and
yeah.
and and it's all about what's on the inside, what the soul has to offer, and the light that's around people. Luckily, I'm a little bit more intuitive and a good judge of character now that I'm constantly clear headed. From substances, that is. I mean, I got a bunch of shit rattling around in there that doesn't make me perfect in the mind. But
Yeah.
that being said, it's don't judge a book by its cover, or as my grandmother liked to used to say, don't judge a wine by its label. And she notoriously drank horrible wine. But, so yeah, my subculture is that Southern frat boy. It was a very, very privileged upbringing. Dad is a successful medical doctor. He's got his hands full right now. Actually, he's a pulmonologist, so a lot of this COVID-19 stuff's respiratory related. So being a lung doctor, he's about to get nailed. I'm worried about him actually. He's pushing 68, and
Damn, man.
but he'll be taking the necessary precautions. And then my mother, garden designer, brilliant woman, extremely cultured, thankfully. And can you hear Jackson in the background?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, buddy. Hold on. Let me
All right, cool. No
get
worries.
away from him. Yeah.
Like we can cut this in post.
Yeah. I hear you. Bud. Papa's talking truths, man. Stay. Try the back porch here. I was thinking the connection on the front porch wasn't as good. That's why we're having a little interruption. So yeah, so subcategory of my upbringing, Southern well-to-do, Southern aristocracy, I guess. I'm named after Jefferson Davis. somewhere along the lineage, Winnie, his daughter, either married in Alford or we were business partners with Jeff Davis or something. So, that's where that name comes from.
Damn.
Family's from Louisiana and Mississippi, where Jeff Davis was from. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Jeff Davis, he's the first and only president of the Confederate States of America.
Dude, the fact that you call him Jeff Davis, bro, that's a power move. I love it. That's some real shit. Like,
my boy JD.
Yeah, JD. I got that blood in me.
Yeah, we was hanging down on the Yazoo River looking for that Confederate cash money. You know what I'm saying, man? Hiding behind the old Wheeler. But it was cool. My mother and father came from, mirror image families. 3 boys, 1 girl in each. Both of their fathers were physicians. Both of their mothers were scientists. My father's mother was a dietitian, and my mother's mother was the first parasitologist female to graduate from Duke University. Female parasitologist. So needless to say, mother's kitchen growing up was extremely clean. When you're in the 40s, there wasn't much that a woman could do with a parasitology master's, right? So
yeah.
Had her kids and stayed at home. And Pop was the go-to physician in Winter Garden, Florida, which is a suburb of Orlando now. That's where my mom was raised. Pop was from Georgia. Grandma was from New Orleans. But was actually raised most of her life in China. Her father was a Southern Baptist missionary over in China, and so she spent about 15 years in China growing up, and then finished. Born in New Orleans, and then came back and finished high school in New Orleans.
So they have Southern Baptists in China. There's like a pocket of them out there.
Yeah, and there's this big ass statue in some province to my great grandfather, Dr. Sanford Emmett Ayers, who is I've got his Wake Forest college degree when I was here in Wake Forest. He graduated there in like the 1900 whatever, and I take my first name from him. My full name is Sanford Davis Alford. Very Southern of me to go by my middle name. My brother does that also. My father does that. But so I tell you this to illustrate the deep-rooted Southern heritage in my family. Dad, on the other hand, his father grew up as a coon-ass, which is, don't let it be misinterpreted, a coon-ass is a redneck Cajun.
Coon-ass is a redneck Cajun?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Speak of the devil, my brother's calling in right now. Coon-ass is a redneck Cajun. So Paul was a coon-ass. He got out of there, went to LSU, played football there or something, and then got his medical degree there, and went and practiced in Greenwood, Mississippi, where he met Agu, my grandmother, and they raised their family there right on the bank of the Yazoo River. And Agu
Yazoo
grew up in
River, on the bank of the Yazoo River, bro. I love this.
Bank of the Yazoo River,
Yeah, my aunt stabbed a dude and did some time in prison. So this is the good contrast.
Yeah. And
she might even change her identity and shit too. Like,
and here we are, shaking elbows. In this course of 19 and skating together.
Yeah, going skating together, skate sessions, bro. This is great, dude. I fucking love our country, man. Like,
there you go, man. And that's the other thing, Freddy. This is this thing that I try to promote. I'll get to it in a minute, but I call it Dixie 2.0. But anyway, so Papa raised his family with Agu, my dad included there in Greenwood, Mississippi, which is the town accredited to the start of the civil rights movement.
Okay.
And, I'm trying to remember. I don't think Emmett Till was killed there, but he may have been. Emmett Till was that 14-year-old black boy from Chicago that allegedly looked at a white woman wrong and then was lynched for it in the sheriff's front yard.
Yeah, and then the lady on her deathbed admitted to lying about it.
Yeah,
fucking nuts, dude.
Right. And like, so that town is steeped with uh, racial tensions like that, as was it in the 40s, 50s, 60s when my dad was growing up. Right.
Yeah.
Another thing, my grandmother, Agu, she was from Greenwood. She went to high school with Byron D. Beckwith, who was who assassinated Medgar Evers in Jackson. You know, Medgar Evers was essentially right there alongside Martin Luther King in the civil rights movements, but was killed in the early 50s before Beckwith, before he really took off. And Auger tells a story about him seeing him in the supermarket the next day in the grocery, and he was after he had, after Medgar Evers had been assassinated the night before, and he was bragging about going hunting the night before.
Wow. Whoa, that's fucking crazy. What did she say that was like? Like, what the fuck? That's crazy.
She I don't know. The story goes that she got called to testify at the original hearing, which he was, let off. Then he got convicted in the early '90s, but she didn't do it because his affiliation with the Ku Klux Klan there was too powerful. Paul was still getting established. Once he became, him and his other partner were the only physicians in Greenwood, he did have a lot of leeway there, which allowed Agu to, who was always open-minded and progressive and tolerant and just a gracious soul, write very liberal letters to the paper and get away with it to some degree. I think they may have gotten like a couple bricks to their windows or something. And Paul like went to the grandmaster there and was like, "Hey, you want me to keep taking care of your baby boo there? You better stop doing that shit." So my father was raised in that household, thankfully, and then my mother was the black sheep of her Southern Baptist family, and they met in college here in North Carolina, Davidson and Queens, and then later got together. Luckily, my brother and I were raised in an extremely open and loving and welcoming household.
Yeah. Because you guys are liberal or what, or like more progressive. That's
definitely.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. My mother's one punch Democrat. My father definitely likes to stir the pot on Facebook. That's his stimulation after work these days. But we stuck out. We were in the upper class neighborhood in Winston-Salem there, and weren't members of the country club or anything. And my mom grew watermelons in the summer in our front yard and pumpkins in the fall in our front yard, and like we were the kind of the hippie family to that degree. But having that heritage, I love history, as you might be able to tell, and because of that, I'm kind of a regionalist. I was like, I associate myself as, I'm not a segregationalist, I'm not a racist, I'm not a, I was like, I'm a regionalist. I love the South. I love the majesty of it. I love its culture. I love where it was, and well, not where it was necessarily, but I love that history, and I appreciate where it's come and what it has become. And that's what I like to call Dixie 2.0.
So explain what is Dixie 2.0 to you?
Well, Dixie 2.0 to me is our relationship. It's a good old waspy white boy skateboarding with a Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
a Dominican Republican.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're a Dominican Republican. Thank you for your votes.
Yeah. You're welcome, Sarah Beth, Betty Sue, Polly.
Yeah.
Skating with a Dominican from Yonkers, New York,
Yeah, baby. Yo.
and it's people like our buddy Jamil Boulevards, throwing down some rad hip hop here out of Raleigh, some rad funk hip hop.
Funk, yeah, baby, that punk funk. He was on the podcast as well.
Yeah, great guy. And it's people like Sharif opening up a beautiful place like Raleigh Raw where people can congregate, whether it be like old school Raleigh politicians or the staff there that's got full sleeves and piercings all over the place.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a melting pot of cultures now, and it's not like it's not discriminated as the ignorant rednecks over there in the South anymore. We still have the stereotypes in places, but I love shattering them, and I try to be an ambassador to Dixie 2.0. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of where I'm from, and that's why I consider myself a regionalist. When I'm
Fuck
dating
yeah,
a
man.
girl,
Well, I think you're doing a fucking awesome job at that, man. I'm telling you, bro. Like you emit awesome vibes. Like I said, I could tell you're willing to connect in the most genuine way possible, man. And it's fucking great, dude. Like,
thank you, man.
I appreciate that so much, man. And it's cool to have a friend like you in my quiver of friends. Like like
I love
it's
that
great.
word. I love quiver.
Yeah, just to see, I don't know. I would like to see like us walking down the street and people being like, "What the fuck?" It's like, like
Definitely.
you dress the way you dress, me dress the way I dress. Like, I love one things I appreciate in life is contrast, and like you said, we have that dichotomy, but deep down we have all these fucking similarities, bro. Like deep down, which is what fucking matters, bro. It's great. So, dude, you got a project coming up that you're working on that sounds awesome. It's your YouTube, the overview from what you explained to me is you sailing in a boat and having conversations with people, and you're gonna make a YouTube channel out of that, dude. Tell me a little bit about that shit, man.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for bringing that up. And honestly, I get inspiration from people like yourself and people like Patrick Moen doing y'all's podcasts, and Anthony Bourdain, what he did and everything. And there's a lot of sailing podcasts out there right now. Actually, not podcasts. I'm sorry, YouTube channels that people are really catching notice to. And the Bravo channel has made sailing kind of hip recently with the below deck sailing yacht edition, I think. So it's a good time
I've heard
to capitalize.
of that. Yeah.
Previously it was just all power yachts, I think. But that being said, I grew up sailing. Extremely waspy of me, right? My two favorite hobbies were skiing and sailing.
Yeah.
When I got to high school, I started playing squash.
Yes, dude, I love this. I used to play dice games in high school, bro.
Right.
Yeah, I used to play CeeLo.
Opposites attract, bro.
Yeah.
I played dice. For a little bit. I played dice for PBRs at the Boone Saloon. But so I grew up sailing. Actually, my grandfather, Papa, built a handmade boat, hand-built boat on their floodplain in front of their house there on the Yazoo. And as a family summer trip, he threw all, including himself, 6 members of the family on this 30-foot wooden hand-hewn boat, sailed it out the Yazoo into the Mississippi and down into New Orleans and around to the Florida Keys. And my father was the one that took to sailing the most out of his siblings. And then, raising his family in North Carolina, we had more access to places to sail. But essentially, I got into that being the son of a sailor. So I'm the cliche of Jimmy Buffett's song. But it's been a release for me in my sobriety and in life in general. The only time I really strung together more than like 5 days of sobriety in 15 years was when I was doing offshore sailing. Because we would be on night watches in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and not allowed to drink, because if we didn't have our wits about us, somebody would fucking drown.
Yeah, man.
So that's what you had to have in your head, at least. Now, dire circumstances, dire straits never really arose except for one trip, which really kind of took my drinking to the next level. Also, I'd saved up a bunch of money. We were doing a transatlantic, going to Spain over like 50 days, stopping in Bermuda and then the Azores. And we got like a day sail
across the Atlantic.
We were going to. This is, and now I've covered the majority of the Atlantic now, but I haven't got all the way from North Carolina to Spain in one fell swoop. But that's on the bucket list for sure. So that's nice. Transatlantic, So we got a day sail from Bermuda. This storm has been with us and for a while, in a big, beautiful vessel. And a minute malfunction caused everything to go to shit. And long story short, we were blind, deaf, and dumb in the middle of the Atlantic, and it's away from calling Mayday, and there was like peril circumstances for like 3 or 4 straight hours where the people on deck, myself included, and the captain and other people could have easily died. And you know, it was like fight or flight kicked in, and we fought. And I'm glad that I had that experience. I now know that, you know, I'm a fighter and I know what to do. I'm also now kind of an adrenaline junkie because of that. But then I got back to the East Coast where we had to reassess whether or not we were going to try to go back out. Decided not to go back out. I had all this money saved up going to Spain, and I just bounced up and down the, you know, Eastern North Carolina seaboard, just getting fucked up and literally getting naked in bars. Like I took all my clothes off in Loggerheads at Wrightsville one night and almost got stabbed by a bunch of surfer grommets. Luckily, my best friend who was playing football for Duke at the time was there to, like, you know, face mask him off with me.
Holy
like,
shit. Yo.
Yeah, I was like, fuck you, bring it on. I just cheated death. That was my mentality for like 2 years. And that was kind of towards the end of college, and then I kind of smartened up a little bit. But yeah, that was a blessing and a curse, for sure, that situation. So the sailing gene is deep within me. And now I use sailing as a reason to find tranquility and practice transcendentalism. And I seek solace out there on the sea. 2 months into my sobriety, actually, so I have my captain's license through the American Sailing Association, and I freelance skipper, you know, so it's kind of a cheap way to, I get paid to sail, you know, in the islands essentially, which is really fun. I do like maybe 1 or 2, so if I'm lucky, 3 trips a year doing that. But I did this one from Norfolk, Virginia to Bermuda, and I signed up, and I realized quickly once I got aboard that I was the hired muscle, and it was a crew full of like geriatric personnel, and they were all like in their 70s, and I did not like them. And I was like 2 months into my sobriety, no booze on board, but obviously you've heard the term drinking like a sailor on short leave. Like once you hit land on trips like that, you go straight to the bar.
Yeah.
You get plowed. And I was like practicing the program some, and I was out there kind of testing myself also. And I needed to be on the sea. I knew that. My body and my mind was telling me that. And so we were on, you know, I'm on board for like 12 days with these people. We get to Bermuda, and like we were in Norfolk for a few days, and it was like 7-day sail to Bermuda. And we get there at like 8 in the morning in St. George, Bermuda. And I immediately take the dinghy to shore, and I go to the Black Horse Tavern right there in the harbor, and I sit down. The bartender's there. I hadn't even checked into customs yet or anything, and he says, "What do I have?" And I say, "I'll have a ginger ale." And I was like, "I think I fucking got this." You know, I was like, I can do this. You know, and because of that, I now look for opportunities to incorporate my sobriety and my seamanship together. Through that, I'm trying to start this YouTube channel that you brought up, and the short pitch of it is Anthony Bourdain minus the booze at a boat. So I want to have people aboard like yourself who may or may not know how to sail, who may or may not be sober, and have conversations like this. And film it, of course, because a lot of shit can happen out at sea, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of things that happens on a boat while you're docked or while you're moored in a harbor.
Yeah.
It's a lot of entertainment, right?
Bro, I would love to do that, man. I would love to. Put me down on the list of yes whenever you get that going, bro. I would love that shit.
Totally. I sent you the first part of the pitch video. I hope you liked that. And saw
I like
kind of where I was
talk
going.
about tranquility, and I felt that through that pitch. So that's good, man. It's on that. It has that through line. So that's good shit, dude.
Definitely. And the transcendentalism of it all also. That's what I sought out in Colorado also, was a spiritual awakening through transcendental meditation. And I received that, thankfully, just being at peace in the woods. I've had a love affair with the sea and the snow for a long time, or the mountains in general. So you know, I'm like John Muir, or a modern day this is me tooting my own horn, a modern day Hemingway.
I like that, bro. Hey,
hopefully not as fake.
I'm all about people tooting their own horns, bro. Life is too fucking hard not to like give yourself a pat on the back, bro, in public, man. People need to get used to that shit. I'm done with this shit, man. Like people need to be. It's okay to be proud of yourself in front of people, man. So I appreciate
we had that conversation.
You deserve it, dude. This is awesome, man. This is great, man. I'm really proud of you, man. I'm looking forward to seeing how our friendship blossoms even more, neighbor.
You bet. Yeah, boiling boys.
Boiling.
Yeah, man, thank you so much for talking with me, and I'll definitely keep you in the loop with that YouTube channel. I've got a great working name for it. I don't want to divulge it right now at the suggestion of an attorney. I don't want anybody to steal the rights to it.
Dude, I love it. This ties it all together. How waspy you are. You're like, nah, my attorney said I can't do that, so I ain't even gonna do it. So. Fuck yeah, dude. I fucking love you, man. Where can people find you if they want to ask you about either sobriety or sailing or even Southern history, man? Where can people find you?
Please. Yeah. Thank you for asking that also, Freddie. Yeah, anything about the South or sailing or skiing or sobriety, man. Those are the strong S's in my life right now. I'm at my email is S for Sanford or Sam, S Davis Alford, ALFORD @gmail.com. And that is also my handle on social media platforms at S Davis Alford. Subject to change to at S Day Alford soon.
Day.
Yeah, that's right. Your boy Day up in here. Yeah, I love to talk about people. If anybody's having a hard time or considering making a change in their life for the better, please reach out. If anybody's thinking about making a change in their life for the worst, or even the unthinkable, not having a life anymore, please don't hesitate to reach out. My number is 336-817-3338 also. So I'm here to talk about any of that, to have a fun chat, to have a serious chat, let you know how I live my life and what has happened now that I've decided to make a change, and the opportunities. And thank you, Freddy, so much for the opportunity to come on and talk about that change with you, as well as everything I got going on, man. In this very interesting time, it's been a very intimate conversation, even with social distancing. And you have an infectious zest for life, and I hope that it is contagious to everyone, and that they all fall victim to it. So
thanks, man. I'm just like you, man. I'm doing the best I can, just like everybody out here, brother. Dude, I love you, man. Thank you for sharing. Guys, subscribe, rate, and review to the Fred Talk podcast. Please share this episode or any episode that you find valuable. I want this shit to grow. I want to stay in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the only way for me to do that is to build my following via the podcast and also my self-titled YouTube channel, Freddy Valoy. I want to build an audience. I want to do right by everybody through these conversations and just by living, So if I can do it, any of you motherfuckers can. So stay positive, do the right thing, be nice to people, man. I love you guys all. Thank you, Davis.
Thank you.
Hell love you. See you guys.
Peace be the journey.
Y'all.